Welcome to another An Old Man Watches, and today we're going to be talking about the 2010 film Adventures of a Teenage Dragon Slayer, also known I think as I Was a Seventh Grade Dragon Slayer, which is the same title, just slightly differently expressed. It's not one of those weird cases where the titles are very, very different in different parts of the world, which often happens for licensing reasons and the like. In any case, 2010 film. Surprise, surprise, if it doesn't actually feature a teenage dragon slayer, because having somebody like fight a dragon, whoa, that's expensive. Not going to be doing that. But basically, the premise here is we've got a high school kid who is hassled by the bullies at school, and in the course of avoiding them, one day he hides in like a storm drain or something like that, and he encounters this troll who he names Bart, because naming him Bart will allow us to have like really lame jokes about what Bart rhymes with later in the movie, because a little bit of scatological humour is never welcome, frankly. At least not for me. In any case, he finds this troll, and and from the troll he learns that there are these two dragons, one good and one evil, and they're engaged in this aeons-long battle. And he obviously has to play a part in it, and we'll talk in a little bit more detail about why he personally has a part to play beyond just happening to stumble across this troll. Because that's one of the things that I actually wanted to specifically discuss as a feature of this film, where I use feature as a characteristic, not as a feature as in it's a good thing, a positive feature. It's not. This movie doesn't really have very many positive features. I have managed to find one that I will talk about. So what does this movie have in it? What does it feature? Well, first of all, dialogue fail. This is some of the most cringingly bad attempt at writing middle/high school kids that I have ever seen. It is awful. It is so bad that when I watched this movie on DVD some time ago, my then flatmate fled the room after like 3 minutes. Like, first scene, and he had to leave the room. He was in such pain. I, however, had spent $5 on this turkey and was determined to get to the end. But yeah, the dialogue is dreadful. It's not helped that the delivery is often very poor as well, from the younger actors. They're not terribly good in this. I tend to put the blame for that on the adults running the show. You can get good performances out of kids. These people didn't. And it's quite possible some of these kids went on and became successful actors. I haven't checked. I don't put the blame on them. There are adults there. They should be making sure the acting is good. But yeah, the dialogue is awful. And as mentioned, they do a whole scene about how funny it is that Bart rhymes with fart. I know kids like scatological humour and they think farts are funny, but it's painful. It's painful. The second thing, and it comes back to why our lead character, whose name I literally cannot remember, why our lead character is kind of like relevant to the struggle between the dragons, and that is that this film features some pop culture pandering. You see, the struggle between good dragon and bad dragon is accurately modelled by a collectible card game that exists in the world of this movie, and the kid is a fan of the game, and therefore he's an expert in all of the things related to the collectible card game. Now, there is a hoary old tradition of making TV shows to sell games and figurines and toys. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, for example. And subsequently, like we've had toys that then got movie and TV shows like Barbie. So Barbie existed first, but then, when they saw, hey, this He-Man thing's working, we see Barbie having her own TV shows and movies these days. And if there really was a collectible card game, well, number one, you wouldn't make a movie to sell it, like a one-off film. You'd probably want to make a TV show. But I would kind of almost forgive this element of the plot. But it doesn't actually matter that there's a collectible card game. The kid's alleged sort of skill with the card game doesn't really matter. It's, it's just there because, hey, the kids are into that magic stuff nowadays, right? Well, it's 2010, probably not so much. I mean, I know magic's still around, but it's not quite the phenomenon it was. 2010, maybe, if you were riding the edge of the curve, you'd be like a Minecrafter-like. You'd be kind of doing. But in any case, yeah, there's some pop culture pandering. It doesn't help. I mean, if there was a game, if there was a game, then probably the elements of the game that are mentioned in the film would make sense, which they don't, because the game would actually have to make some kind of sense. But it's just a tacky plot device to kind of seem like it's hip and cool. It is neither. It's the kind of movie that thinks that things should be hip and cool, therefore showing that it is neither of these things. So yeah, it's pretty awful on that respect. So is there anything at all to recommend this film? Well, there's one thing. I'm going to damn it with faint praise. There is one thing. I've already talked about how bad the kids' performances are in this film, and that's it's on the director, it's on the writer, it's on the people who were making this movie. It's not on them. But this movie even manages to make most of its adult cast bad, and that includes some people who have had careers and been in movies and been decent in those movies. Like Leah Thompson plays the main character's mother. She was the love interest for Marty McFly in the Back to the Future movies. So she's a capable actor, and she's really drab and dull in this because the people behind the scenes just didn't seem to know how to make an engaging movie and make things interesting. The one person who breaks out of this mold and actually manages to be entertaining on screen is Wendy Malick, who plays like the evil vice principal of the school. And the reason that she manages to break out of this mold and be entertaining is what I'm calling gobble gobble, which is that she realises that she is in a turkey and she gobbles the scenery for all she's worth. She hams it up. And in a movie like this, the fact that there aren't more people hamming it up is probably a mistake. Like, this is it's called Adventures of the Teenage Dragon Slayer. It's supposed to be bombastic and silly and over the top, and that's the movie just continually doesn't get its own identity. I think, like, you can't make this movie drab and routine and sensible and restrained. You've got to go big. Wendy Malick does, and she's fun. And she's not on screen anywhere near enough to save the movie. Like, don't get me wrong, but when she is on screen, things do at least brighten up. There is somebody on screen having fun, and it's almost possible to have fun yourself when that's happening. But otherwise, we're talking drab, dull, not even workman-like filmmaking. It's just, it's turn up and earn a paycheck filmmaking. There's no passion on display from the people making this movie, outside of Wendy Malick, who is at least, having some fun. So that's Adventures of Teenage Dragon Slayer, a movie with a cool title, and absolutely nothing else cool about it except for, one person overacting. Not good. Steer clear. Not the worst sort of aimed at kids science fiction movie I've ever seen. That would be one of the Josh Kirby Time Warrior movies. It's hard to pick out of the 6 of those which is the worst, but I have watched them all, and trust me, they're all kind of like, technically worse than this movie, because they make less sense and they're even more lazy, but they are occasionally more gonzo than this, which does kind of, give me a little bit of affection for them, regardless of how god-awful they actually were, and they were god-awful. So what am I going to talk about next? I'm going to talk about another 2010 film, but this time one that I actually enjoyed a bit more because it does understand what type of movie it should be. And that is a film called Alien Opponent. Those of you with very sharp eyes might be looking at the priest there and thinking, is that Rowdy Roddy Piper? Yes, it is. And that immediately tells you, like any movie that casts Rowdy Roddy Piper in 2010, it knows what it is. It is a movie that, is channeling Hell Comes to Frogtown, and that kind of, kitschy, 80s science fiction nonsense. We'll talk about Alien Opponent next time. But this is a movie that is entertaining because it understands what it is and it understands what its limitations are. And I'll talk in more detail about that next time. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.